A watch hand drags itself across the dial with the patience of a slow leak. Somewhere close, paper is turned, once, twice, then turned back as if the motion might change what's printed there. A pencil taps wood in a measured rhythm that tries to become music and fails. Metal clicks softly. A drawer opens halfway, hesitates, then closes again without taking it. Someone clears his throat and does not speak. The room holds its breath the way a hallway does just before a door slams. A lamp hums. Not loud, just enough to remind everyone that light is a kind of machinery, and machinery can stop. The glass shade is warm to the touch. The warmth does not spread. A man at the far end of the table rolls a cigarette with careful fingers, licking the paper seam, pressing it down, then unrolling it to do it again. He never lights it. The matchbox stays in his palm like a secret. His eyes keep shifting to the same point on the wall, a hairline crack that has been there long enough to feel permanent. He traces it once with his gaze, then again and again, as if rehearsing an exit route. Behind him, boots move past. Slow, unhurried steps that try to sound casual. Cloth brushes cloth. A belt buckle gives a tiny squeak. The smell of damp wool and cold tobacco sits in the air like old smoke trapped in curtains. There is also ink, sharp and bitter, and something faintly metallic, like coins left too long in a pocket. A door somewhere down the corridor opens, and for a moment the room receives a thin slice of distant sound. A voice muffled by walls, a brief laugh cut short, the scrape of a chair. Then the door closes again, and the slice disappears. Silence rearranges itself to fill the space. On the table, a cup has been set down and lifted so many times it has made a ghost ring in the varnish. A hand returns to it out of habit, fingertips circling the rim, then withdrawing. Another hand smooths the same crease out of a map that refuses to lie flat. The paper springs back the second it is released, stubborn as a memory. Someone's knee bounces once beneath the table, then stops, as if caught in the act. There are no raised voices. There is no shouting. No one looks panicked. The calm is too deliberate for that. Pressed and ironed into shape like a uniform. Faces keep their polite angles. Shoulders stay squared. Even the breathing is measured, practiced. Yet the air has weight. Every few minutes, without being asked, someone checks the time. Not dramatically. Just a glance, a flick of the eyes, a subtle turn of the wrist. The gesture is so small it could be mistaken for boredom. It isn't. A telephone sits nearby, heavy and still. Its cord lies in a gentle curve, like a resting snake. The receiver has been lifted once already, tested, set back down with care, then lifted again, listened to, returned to its cradle. The person who did it did not look surprised by what he heard. That is what makes it work. On the other side of the room, a stack of folders is aligned to the edge of the desk, squared perfectly. Someone nudges it again. Unnecessary, precise. The folders do not move. The nudge is for the person, not the paper. A chair creaks as a man shifts his weight. The sound is loud in the stillness, and he freezes, embarrassed by the noise, as if the room itself might reprimand. He rests his palms flat on his knees. His nails are clean. His knuckles. There is a window, tall, grimy, the glass slightly rippled, showing a strip of sky that could be morning or evening. The light outside looks thin, stretched, reluctant. Nothing moves beyond the pane except a faint sway of something far off. Maybe a wire, maybe a branch. It is the kind of movement that feels like someone trying not to be noticed. Inside, the waiting continues, dressed up as routine. A page is stamped. The stamp is lifted and set down again on the same spot, as if to make the mark darker, more certain. A pen scratches a signature, pauses halfway through the name, then finishes. The hand that signs does not shake. It should. Someone coughs again, softer this time, and the others pretend not to hear. A chair leg scrapes the floor and is immediately lifted, repositioned with an apology made only in the eyes. A man rubs his thumb over a ring, over and over, polishing the same inch of metal until it shines. The lamp hums. The phone waits. The clock keeps dragging itself forward, and no matter how carefully they fold paper, align folders, test the receiver, straighten collars, and breathe like nothing is wrong, time keeps closing in and there isn't much left. Morning arrives without ceremony, as if it has been doing this work for years and sees no reason to announce itself now. Light leaks into the building through high windows filmed with dust and old smoke. It lands in pale bands across the floor, catching on scuffed boots, chair legs, the corners of desks that have been worn smooth by decades of leaning elbows. Outside, somewhere beyond thick walls, engines idle, not revving, not advancing, just running, patiently burning fuel, a sound so constant it blends into the architecture. The room is not alone. It belongs to a larger structure, corridors branching like veins, offices stacked beside one another, a place designed for administration rather than urgency. Maps hang where paintings might have once been imagined. Some are new, edges sharp and colors confident. Others are older, yellowed, corners curling inward as if trying to retreat from what they did. Pins dot them in clusters. Strings connect points that look tidy from a distance and troubling up close. Men move through the halls with practiced ease. Caps are adjusted. Papers are exchanged. A greeting is offered, returned, repeated. The words are familiar, stripped of meaning by use. Someone jokes about the weather. Someone else replies without really listening. Coffee is poured into thick cups meant to survive drops in careless hands. It tastes burnt. No one complains. In one office, a clerk copies figures from one ledger to another, careful to align the columns. His handwriting is neat, almost decorative, the kind taught to children before the war simplified everything. He pauses only when the carbon paper smudges, lifting the page, blowing lightly, as if breath might restore order. He does not question the numbers. He never does. Down the corridor, a door marked with peeling paint stands open. Inside, a radio murmurs low enough to be ignored. Static breathes between fragments of speech. The voice on the other end sounds calm, confident, rehearsed. It speaks of movements and positions, of confirmations received and confirmations pending. Each phrase ends cleanly, like a period. No exclamation points, no questions. A young officer leans against a wall nearby, reading the same paragraph of a report for the third time. He knows it by heart now, but continues anyway, tracing the lines with his eyes as if the words might rearrange themselves. When footsteps approach, he straightens, folds the paper once, twice, slips it into his jacket. His expression resets into something neutral and presentable. Outside, vehicles are lined with the precision of a parade that never quite happens. Canvas flaps stir faintly in the breeze. A driver wipes dust from a windshield that will be dirty again within the hour. Another checks a tire with the toe of his boot, presses, nods, moves on. Orders have not changed, so neither do they. There is a schedule pinned to a board near the entrance. Someone has updated it in pencil, erasing one time and writing another just below. The handwriting is tight, controlled. A second erasure ghosts beneath the first, faint but visible if you look closely. No one comments on it. Schedules shift. That is normal. In the mess room, plates clink. Cutlery scrapes. A conversation drifts about leave that might come later, about a letter received, about a brother who finally wrote back. Laughter appears briefly, like a visitor unsure of their welcome, then leaves again. The men eat because it is time to eat. They chew because the body insists. Hunger feels distant, theoretical. A runner passes through with a stack of envelopes tied in string. He delivers them, waits while signatures are made, then gathers the receipts. His boots are too new. He keeps glancing at them, as if they might betray him by squeaking. They don't. In the main room, the telephone rings once. Not the sharp, demanding ring that pulls heads up and tightens spines. Just a single, brief sound. It stops before anyone reaches for it. A few men look at the phone anyway. One of them smiles thinly, a gesture meant to reassure no one in particular. Wrong line, he says, without checking. The clock on the wall says the same thing it said a few minutes ago, and the few minutes before that. Its hands move, but reluctant, as if aware of being watched. A senior officer stands near the window, hands clasped behind his back, staring not at the outside, but at the reflection of the room in glass. It overlays desks and faces onto the pale sky beyond, a double image that doesn't quite line up. He adjusts his posture, squares his shoulders. When someone speaks to him, he answers immediately, smoothly, without turning around. Everything on track, he says. The phrase has been used enough to feel official. Files circulate, stamps fall, ink dries. A typewriter hammers out a page, stops, hammers again. The typist removes the sheet, checks it, frowns at a single line, then decides it's acceptable. She stacks it with the others, aligning the corners, tapping them once against the desk. No alarms sound, no one runs. The building hums with competence. And yet, small things resist. A message takes longer than expected to arrive. When it does, the paper is creased in the wrong place, as if folded by unfamiliar hands. A map refuses to stay pinned at one corner, sagging no matter how many times it is fixed. A radio transmission ends half a second too soon, cutting off a word that might not have mattered. Each irregularity is noted, absorbed, explained away. Someone says, probably nothing. Someone else says, it'll sort itself out. They believe it, or at least behave as if they do. The routines continue, pressed forward by habit and structure, by the comforting illusion that procedure is a kind of shield. Outside, engines keep idling. Inside, clocks keep moving. Normality holds, stretched thin, under a pressure no one names. By midday, the building has learned how to ignore itself. The first sign is so small, it almost feels impolite to notice. A messenger arrives late, not dramatically late, not enough to warrant a remark. just late enough that the man who expected him checks the doorway twice before looking back down at his paper. When the messenger finally appears, breath steady, expression apologetic but unconcerned, no explanation is asked. The envelope changes hands. The delay evaporates into the A radio operator lifts one side of his headset and rubs his ear. Static has crept in again, a fine grain that wasn't there earlier. He adjusts a dial, then another. The voice returns, slightly distorted, but intelligible enough to accept. He writes down what he hears, leaving out the uncertainty. It would only clutter the room. In an adjacent room, a map has been revised, not redrawn, just altered at the margin. A line has shifted a fraction of an inch. A symbol has been circled twice instead of once. The officer making the changes steps back, tilts his head, considers undoing them, then doesn't. He tells himself the adjustment reflects reality more accurate. He does not ask how recent that reality is. Foot traffic in the corridors thickens, then thins. A door that is usually kept shut stands open longer than necessary. Voices carry farther than intended. A phrase repeats itself in 3 different rooms, spoken by 3 different people, each unaware of the others. It should be fine. A junior clerk pauses mid-entry when he realizes a figure does not match the total at the bottom of the page. He recalculates. Once, twice. The discrepancy remains. He looks toward the far desk, where his superior is speaking quietly with someone else. The clerk considers interrupting, imagines the look he might receive, then adjusts the number to make the column behave. The ledger closes with a soft thud. Problem solved. Outside, a thin cloud passes in front of the sun. The light shifts, briefly dimmer, and then returns. Several heads lift at once, then lower again, embarrassed by the instinct. At the motor pool, a vehicle stalls. The driver turns the ignition again. The engine coughs, catches, runs. He laughs, pats the dashboard, says something affectionate under his breath. He does not report the hesitation. Machines have moods. Everyone knows that. A telephone call connects on the second ring instead of the first. The voice on the line sounds farther away than expected, as if speaking through layers of cloth. The message itself is ordinary, reassuring. When the receiver is set down, the man who took the call remains still for a moment longer than necessary, hand resting on the cradle. Then he straightens and carries the reassurance with him into the next room. At lunch, food goes uneaten, not because it tastes bad, because conversations drift and plates cool. Someone mentions a rumor heard secondhand. It is vague enough to dismiss. Someone else laughs and calls it nonsense. The laughter is louder than required, and it works. The rumor dissolves. In the main office, a clock stops. No one notices at first. The hands simply fail to advance, frozen at a time that no longer exists. Activity continues beneath it. Documents passed, chairs shifted, instructions given. When someone finally glances up, he frowns, checks his wristwatch, then taps the clock's glass with one knuckle. The mechanism resumes its movement, obedient, as if nothing happened. The man does not mention it to anyone. A report arrives with a page missing. The absence is discovered only after the rest has been read aloud. There is a pause while someone checks the folder again. Then a decision is made to proceed without it. We know what it would say, someone remarks. Heads nod. The meeting continues. In the communications room, a message is received out of order. Not incorrect, just misplaced in time. It refers to a condition already assumed to be resolved. The operator hesitates, pen hovering, then files it under an earlier timestamp. Order is restored on paper, which is where order matters. A senior officer clears his throat before speaking and loses his place. He starts the sentence again, chooses a different phrasing, one that sounds more confident. The room accepts it gratefully. Confidence is contagious. Doubt is not. Outside the window, the sky has flattened into a dull, even color. Wind presses against the glass without sound. Somewhere far off, a low vibration passes through the ground, distant enough to be explained as routine movement, or weather, or imagination. No one asks which. A man tasked with checking equipment signs off on an inspection he hasn't completed. He intends to return to it later. He does not write later anywhere. In a corner, a file marked urgent sits beneath 2 newer ones. Its red tab is still visible, peeking out like a warning that has learned patience. It will be found eventually, just not yet. The building remains calm. Conversations continue at their measured pace. Smiles appear when required. The language of certainty circulates freely. Confirmed, stable, as expected. And beneath it all, small signals accumulate. Misalignments, delays, hesitations, each too minor to justify alarm, each requiring an explanation that is readily available. Taken alone, they mean nothing. Together, they wait. Momentum builds quietly, unacknowledged, while everyone carries on as if the day still has room to correct itself. The afternoon contracts without anyone saying so. Hours that once stretched now seem to fold inward, overlapping, compressing. Tasks are completed more quickly, not because they require less care, but because there is less space around them. Movement in the corridors becomes purposeful, almost efficient. Doors open and close with less hesitation. Papers change hands faster. The rhythm tightens. A message arrives marked routine. It is read twice anyway. The officer who reads it stands beside a table cluttered with earlier decisions, maps, folders, coffee rings that have gone dry. He scans the page, then scans it again, slower this time, as if expecting a different sentence to reveal itself. When he looks up, the room waits for him without appearing to. He clears his throat. "Minor adjustment," he says, choosing the phrase carefully. It is repeated, quietly, by someone else. The phrase spreads. Across the room, a junior aide feels the urge to speak and suppresses it. He tells himself the thought is incomplete, unformed, better not to interrupt with something half-shaped. He folds his hands together to keep them still. His foot taps once. He stops it. Outside, the engines that have been idling all day are shut down, one by one, not together. The silence they leave behind is noticeable enough to draw a few glances toward the windows. Someone remarks that it's good to save fuel. Someone else agrees. The quiet settles in, thicker than. A phone rings. This time it rings twice. The receiver is lifted immediately. The voice on the line is familiar, but the cadence is off. Words come in the right order, but with less space between them. There is no panic, just compression. When the call ends, the man who took it does not return to his seat right away. He stands where he is, staring at the phone as if it might ring again on its own. It doesn't. In the main room, a map is turned 90 degrees to catch the light. A hand traces a route that stops just short of a line drawn earlier. The finger hesitates there, hovering. No one comments. The hand withdraws. A decision is nearly made. It lives in the space between sentences, in the pause before someone speaks again. A chair scrapes as a man shifts forward, then settles back. Another person reaches for a pen, then sets it down. The moment lingers, elastic, full. "Let's wait," someone says, not firmly, not weakly, reasonably. The word wait lands heavily. It sounds responsible. It sounds controlled. Heads nod. Waiting is something they know how to do. They have been doing it all day. A report is brought in person rather than sent through the usual channel. The runner's face is flushed, but not alarmed. He hands over the document, salutes, leaves. The report is read silently. No one reads it aloud. When it is set down, it is placed carefully, aligned with the others, its urgency diluted by symmetry. Outside the building, light shifts again. Shadows. Somewhere far off, something moves that cannot be seen from here. Inside, someone glances at the clock and realizes the time is not what he expected. He does the calculation in his head, decides it still fits. In the communications room, a channel opens that was not scheduled to. The operator stiffens, then relaxes when the transmission resolves into something ordinary. He logs it anyway, marking the time precisely. Precision feels important. A senior officer asks a question that has already been answered earlier in the day. No one points this out. The answer is given again, slightly revised, smoother. The revision goes unnoticed. A choice presents itself disguised as a formality. It requires no bold language, no declaration, just a sequence of approvals, each one small enough to feel harmless. A signature here, a confirmation there, a check mark in a box that was always going to be checked eventually. Hands hover over paper, pens uncap. Someone says, "We still have time." It is true in a narrow sense. The window has not closed yet. Nothing irreversible has happened. The line has not been crossed. But the window is smaller now. The air around it is thin. The last chance does not announce itself. It blends into routine, into habit, into the expectation that there will be another moment, a clearer signal, a better time to act. The room leans forward together, not rushing, not stopping, just enough that when the moment passes, it will do so quietly, without resistance. The shift happens without a sound anyone can point to. No door slams. No voice rises. Nothing announces itself as different. And yet, something settles into place with the finality of weight-meeting balance. A pen touches paper. It is an ordinary, black ink, metal clip worn smooth by years of use. The hand holding it hesitates for a fraction of a second, long enough to feel deliberate, not long enough to invite comment. The ink flows. A name takes shape, practiced and confident, ending in a line that presses harder than the rest. The pen lifts. The paper absorbs the mark and does not give it back. The folder is closed. That is all. Around the table, no one reacts. Not because they missed it, but because it looked exactly like every other administrative motion that has happened here all day. The folder joins a stack of completed matters. Its spine faces outward, identical to the others. Its presence does not disturb the symmetry. A chair shifts. Someone exhales, quietly. The feeling passes through the room. Not satisfaction, not victory, just release. Something has been handled. Something has been placed where it belongs. Outside, a single engine starts. Not all of them, just one. The sound cuts cleanly through the air, unfamiliar now after the long quiet. Heads turn toward the windows without urgency. Someone notes the model by ear. Someone else guesses who's driving. The engine idles. It does not move. Inside, a clerk removes a document from a typewriter and notices the ribbon has worn thin. The letters are still readable, just faint at the edges. He considers replacing it, checks the drawer, decides it can wait. The page is added to the outgoing A message is acknowledged. The acknowledgement is brief, efficient, nearly automatic. A checkbox filled, a line initialed. The person doing it does not reread the original message. There is no need now. It has already been accounted for in the system. Systems do not go backward. In the communications room, a light changes color. Green to amber. Amber holds. The operator watches it, hand hovering near a switch, waiting for instructions that do not come. After a moment, he logs the change and leans back. The light remains amber. Someone pours the last of a pot of coffee into a cup and grimaces at the taste. It has been sitting too long. He drinks it anyway. Waste feels inappropriate. A door that was meant to stay open is closed. No one gives the order. A hand simply reaches out and pulls it shut softly until the latch catches. The sound is barely audible, but it alters the air. The corridor beyond is cut off, its noise reduced to a dull suggestion. In a side office, a map is rolled up. Not discarded, not removed, just rolled and set aside, making space on the table. Another map is already there, cleaner, more current, its edges crisp. The older one resists slightly, paper stiff with age, then submits to the curve. A string that once connected 2 points hangs loose, no longer anchored. It is tucked into the roll and disappears. A man realizes he has missed his chance to say something. The realization comes late, after the conversation has already moved on. He opens his mouth, then closes it. What he was going to say no longer fits. The moment that would have given it meaning has passed. Quietly, while everyone was being careful. He tells himself it wasn't important. A phone rings once and stops. This time, no one reaches for it. The silence afterward feels intentional, like a decision made without words. After a few seconds, someone resumes speaking, picking up exactly where they left off, as if the interruption never occurred. Outside, the engine shuts off. The sound dies abruptly, leaving behind a vacuum that seems to pull attention in. Papers rustle louder than they should. Footsteps echo. The building feels sealed now, self-contained. A runner arrives with a question and leaves with an answer that does not quite answer it. He accepts it anyway. He has learned the difference between clarification and closure. This is the latter. A clock ticks. Everyone hears it. Time has resumed its authority. The earlier sense of delay, of elastic minutes, is gone. Now there is sequence, order, before and after. Someone checks a list and draws a line through an item, not crossing it out, just marking it complete. The line is straight, decisive. The list remains long, but this entry will never be revisited. A document is stamped with a date. The stamp lands slightly off-center. The person notices, adjusts the page, considers stamping it again, then decides against it. One mark is enough. More would only draw attention. In the far corner of the room, a red-tabbed file remains unopened. Its urgency has expired without being addressed. It is not removed. It simply becomes background, part of the furniture, its warning color dulled by neglect. No one speaks the words too late. They don't need to. The atmosphere has changed, subtly but completely. The tension that once hovered, waiting to be resolved, has transformed into momentum. Not fast, not violent, just steady, directional, no longer asking permission. People move differently, more efficiently, less reflectively. Actions follow actions without pause. The room no longer leans forward. It has stepped. Somewhere in the structure, a sequence has begun that will not stop on its own. Inside this room, there is still calm. Voices remain level. Faces remain composed. If anyone were to enter now, they would see nothing unusual. Just people doing their jobs. Just another late afternoon, a place built for decisions. But the line has been crossed. Not with ceremony, not with awareness. Simply by continuing. And everything that happens next, every movement, every confirmation, every routine task, belongs to what has already been set in motion, whether anyone names it or not. The building exhales and does not breathe back in. It is not empty. It is full of people, of objects, of purpose. But the motion has thinned to something almost theoretical. Sound still exists, yet it arrives muted, as if padded by distance or intention. Footsteps soften, voices lower without instruction. Even the rustle of paper seems reluctant to disturb the air. The sequence continues on its own now. In the main room, chairs are pushed back under tables with care that borders on reverence. A man aligns a stack of documents he will not read again. Another checks a seal twice, not because it might be wrong, but because the act of checking feels like participation. The clock keeps time faithfully. No one challenges it. Outside, the light fades into a color that cannot decide what it is. Not dusk yet, not day anymore. Shadows stretch until they touch and overlap, blurring the edges of things that once seemed fixed. The windows reflect more interior than exterior, faces, lamps, movement, turning the outside into a suggestion. A radio remains on, volume low. There is nothing urgent in the transmission, nothing dramatic, just confirmation of continuity. The voice on the other end sounds calm, unhurried, unaware of how final calm can feel when it arrives too late to matter. A man reaches for his coat, then stops. It isn't time to leave. He smooths the fabric anyway, brushing off dust that will return. His hand lingers at the collar, fingers pressing into the wool as if to reassure himself of its solidity. In a side room, someone washes a cup and sets it upside down to dry. Water drips once, twice, then stops. The cup remains inverted, empty, waiting. The door that was closed earlier stays closed. No one tests it. No one needs to. The boundary has been accepted. A message arrives and is acknowledged without discussion. The acknowledgement travels outward, invisible but effective, threading itself through systems and channels that do not pause to consider meaning. The acknowledgement is enough. There is a moment, a brief, almost tender interval, where nothing happens at all. No papers, no one speaks. The radio breathes static. The clock ticks. A man blinks and becomes aware of the sound of his own breathing, shallow and precise. He slows it deliberately, embarrassed by the thought that someone might notice. In that stillness, the weight becomes undeniable. It does not press down violently. It settles. Like dust. Like snow. Like something that has been falling for a long time and has finally accumulated enough to be seen. Someone looks toward the window and imagines motion beyond it. Not visible, not audible, but inevitable. The image forms uninvited and is dismissed just as quickly. Imagination is not evidence. Evidence has already been filed away. A folder is moved from one side of the desk to the other. The gesture is meaningless. It feels important anyway. In the communications room, the amber light holds steady. The operator notes the time again, though it has not changed since the last notation. He stops himself from checking it a third time. There is no instruction to follow. There will be no instruction before what comes next. Outside, somewhere beyond the reach of glass and concrete, something is already aligned. Not launched, not begun, just aligned. The kind of alignment that does not require further thought. Inside, people wait, not for permission, not for clarity, but for the next expected sound, the next scheduled confirmation, the next small action that will carry them forward. Waiting has become passive now, stripped of choice. A man thinks of a sentence he might have spoken earlier in the day. It returns to him fully formed, perfect in its timing, devastatingly useless. He lets it go. Another checks his watch and realizes he no longer knows what he hoped the time would be. The air feels suspended, as if held in a lung too long. No one comments on it. No one dares to be the first to move in a way that acknowledges what is approaching. There are no final words. There is no gathering, no shared glance of understanding, no dramatic pause where everyone recognizes the threshold together. Recognition is solitary, fragmented, arriving too quietly to unite them. The machinery hums. The systems remain engaged. The calm holds. Everything necessary has already been done. Nothing remains but the waiting, and the waiting has run out, even if no one says so. Time does not stop. It simply reaches the edge and stays there.